Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online, and this afternoon I have with us the lovely Helen Elizabeth Evans. Now, Helen, actually, I neglected to ask you what your bio was. I usually do ask people, what's your bio and what you're doing right now, but I will tell you what I know about Helen. I went to see her many years ago. For the art of hand analysis, life purpose hand analysis. So she's got this art of looking at our hands, what we're born with, what our gifts are, and how that translates in our palms. So I thought this was really fascinating because not only did she peg what I did pretty much, but also gave me some growth areas that I needed to look at. And I hope now, I think probably about 10 years ago now that we did that. I think it was around that time, even more perhaps, that some of it might have changed. I don't know, but it was really fascinating. Anyway, she is also experienced in astrology, so she laces in bits of that as well. So it's really fascinating work, helping people find their life purpose through means that you might not have thought, but do end up making a lot of sense. So I had to reach out to Helen today to ask her. Well, first of all, welcome, Helen.
Thank you. So great to connect again. I can't tell you how fabulous it is when I see one of my clients from the past just really stepping into your light in so many ways and stepping into your brilliance.
Thank you.
And just really reflecting it in the world. And you do, don't you?
Well,
you are completely captivating.
I try my best. So, Helen, the spotlight's on you now. If you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
I think, there's so many things there's so many angles that I could take things from. But you did introduce the concept of fingerprint analysis. So just what I've learned from fingerprint analysis, I think, is my first thing. Because I'm a real skeptic in the world, and yet I'm deeply spiritual as well. And what I love about fingerprint analysis is how it honors my skeptic while allowing me to connect to the more spiritual side of myself as well. Because it's fundamentally something that's in your body. It's like how your brain works, how it's designed to work. And yet at the same time, it also honors the fact that we have a part of us that is a higher self, if you want to call it, a more spiritual self, an aspirational self that, I call it your soul, your spirit, but, whatever word you want to use for it, it's a higher essence of who you are. And definitely fingerprint analysis honors that. And I love, for me, and the learning that I have that I would love to share with people, that it doesn't matter whether you do your fingerprints or not, is to recognize that every aspect of who you are is exactly who you need to be to do the work that you are here to do in the world. Wow. So, one of my learnings, for instance, I'm a strong character. I have a lot of, energy to the way that I communicate, the way that I show up in the world. And as a woman in particular, a lot of people in the past have kind of sort of suggested I might want to get back in my box. Just tone it down, be more gentle.
Definitely don't need to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And, and yet then I look at my fingerprints, and actually my fingerprints tell me that I'm here to be powerful, that there's a whole point to me having a strong way of speaking, because it allows me to motivate and inspire and excite people, which is part of my purpose. I'm here to lift people up. And I can't do that if I want to you make a powerful impact on people. So I have been given a powerful voice and a powerful way of communicating in order to allow me, to help me do the work that I'm here to do. But I have some clients who are deeply gentle souls. They're not, they're quieter in the way that they do things. And they are exactly who they need to be too, to do the work that actually not only fulfills them, but really makes a difference in the world. So I guess one of my key messages is you are exactly who you need to be. And don't apologize for it. Don't try to fix yourself. You don't need fixing. You just need revealing. And I genuinely believe all of us are these. If you imagine yourself as this beautiful golden Buddha, if you want, I'm choosing Buddha for a laugh, but anything, this beautiful golden self within you. And then in actual fact, living through life, you have not become a diminished human being or spirit in any way. You have just collected dirt. and you just need a good shower to recognize how brilliant and fabulous you actually are. And that dirt is all the should. I should be like this. Society suggests that I must run my business this way, or I must be like this, or I must do things this way. And my passion is to help you recognize that the shoulds actually make you mediocre, and that you are, as an individual, exciting and unique and different as long as you live by your own personal truth, your personal values, your personal drive, your personal insight, your personal inspiration, and you don't limit yourself by listening to everybody else's opinion.
I love that. Wow, a lot of fascinating stuff to break down there. But I like that concept of, you know, you perfect as you are. You just maybe have some dirt that you need to shake off. I know I'm paraphrasing a little bit now.
No, absolutely.
But in relation to the dirt being the shoulds, so, and you briefly touched on this, but what if that should is something that is really a should? Like, so an easy example is, you know, you shouldn't break the law. Well, hopefully, please don't. I don't do crime. In terms of, you know, so what if, how do you recognize what is a should that you should, and what is a should that you need to shake off?
I think it relates to your values. And I think you must always come back to what's important to you. So, for instance, my sister is obsessed with, say, the laws. And for instance, she won't even park on a yellow line on a Sunday because she's worried about breaking a law. So you
There's
need
no
to
law.
kind of,
Helen's sister,
yes,
it's legal on a Sunday,
but,
depending on where you are.
But exactly, but can you see how it's conceptual? Because she feels that that yellow line is there for a reason, because they don't really want people to park there. So even though it's not a law on a Sunday, it's probably not ideal to park there anyway, because that's the whole point of it normally having a yellow line. So it depends how you choose to interpret the laws. I'm a little bit more of a rebel. So I might actually even park on the yellow line on a day when I'm not supposed to, but I would probably be very quick about it. So, you know, everybody has their own interpretation to the next. Clearly, you don't want to steal. You don't want to, there are extremes, which I think relate back to your values. Yeah. And say whether it's appropriate or not. And I think also the other thing that I would say, if you're not sure about what is correct to do and what isn't, as long as you're not harming anybody. That is absolutely key, is do no harm, you know. And a lot of laws are based on preventing harm, you know, harm to children or harm to other people in some way. And a lot of reasons we put laws in place is because there are some people who just don't seem to be able to self-regulate. So, you know, I think use some level of I'm assuming that you're a fundamentally an intelligent, smart human being who cares about other people and cares about your impact on the world. When I say don't be, because I think those are the people who are the most limited by should, because they don't want to harm people. They don't want to they want to fit in. They want to belong. They want people to like them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us who are decent, kind, considerate human beings tend to be affected in that way. You know, I know some people who possibly might be like what we call a bull in a china shop. But I think that, you know, and not always fully considerate of everybody around them. But sometimes, to be honest with you, some of us need to be to spend some time with the bull in the china shop, because we're so we do so much navel gazing, you know, about like, oh, what I should or shouldn't do, and what's correct and what isn't correct. Actually, we need a few rule breakers in our lives, because I think the rule breakers are often our leaders. They're the ones who make us think outside the box. They trigger us to actually ask us, you know, what is it that we care about? What's important to us? People who trigger me are my greatest friends, because although on one level I'd like to punch them because they're so mean to me, on another level they ask me to step up. They ask me to query my values. How do I want to respond to this person who is triggering something within me? Do I want to make it about blame? No, I think, you know, blame diminishes me. It means that I have no power. So I don't ever want to blame a person because I'm choosing to react to what they've done their way.
Yeah.
Right? It's my responsibility how I'm responding. So each person who triggers me gives me an opportunity to expand myself, to grow, to deepen my understanding of the world, and to find a more positive way of responding to the world in general, and also possibly letting go of some of my limitations as to the way I think things should be.
Mm. What if it's let's go to the concept of triggers then. What if it's like a really big trigger for you? So, for example, I do a bit of family law. So what I tend to get a lot is mothers and fathers who disagree fundamentally in how their child should be raised. And it might be that they agree on a lot of things, but they might disagree on, say, religion or diet or school. Let's take school. For example, one parent thinks, private school all the way, I went to Eton. And the other parent thinks, no, they need to connect with the people, state. And they could be a really significant trigger. How do you deal with that while still getting what you want?
I think, you're a mediator, right? So you understand the concept of finding the higher purpose within something and bringing people back to that point of agreement first before you go back down into the detail. And I think the first thing is to always bring yourself to a point of an agreement with somebody you're in conflict with first, because often, say in the case of children and their education, both parents want the best for their kids.
Yeah.
But the first thing they've got to do is acknowledge that with one another and say, okay, we both want what's best. Now, I think private school is better. Well, why do you think private school is better? Give me your reasons what you think could be valuable. Why do you want to do the whole state school system? Okay, these are what I want to get out of. Can we find a solution that might actually be a compromise between the two? Maybe we can find a private school education which brings in the diversity that often is present in a state school, if that's important to you. So for me, although I did a private school education, my husband and I decided to send our kids to state school, but we sent them to an elitist state school. So in a way, it kind of like, it was bringing both, because we wanted the diversity that they would get from the state school. We wanted them to be able to mix with anyone, and we felt that was an important aspect to who they are and who they're becoming. I won't say that our decision was the right decision. It was just a decision we took at the time, and you deal with it accordingly. And, and I think it's ultimately every situation, every point of conflict, it's about actually finding where you agree, and always remember that each person is trying to achieve what you have both agreed on. And when there is disagreement, it's about actually finding a compromise that will. And one of my things my husband and I do is we go, the person who it matters most to gets to be in charge of that thing. So
right, okay.
I'm obsessive about, say, the kids not having packed lunches. But my husband thinks, maybe they should have packed lunches. And I go, no, I want them to eat the school food. I want them to get used to it or whatever. And he's like, about the whole thing. He'll let me have my way. But then that means that I shouldn't always have my way, because the need to control something and control a situation, in my experience, is an example of somebody who doesn't feel safe. So if you need to control something completely, for some reason, there's some aspect of that you feel unsafe about, that you don't feel comfortable about. And it's really that which is what needs examination, not the fact that you don't have control. And I think once we start to understand our motivations behind what we want and what is triggering us, it makes it much easier to find compromise. It finds it much easier to find a way to work together.
Yeah. All right.
As an expert mediator, what would you say in response to that?
Well, the spotlight was supposed to be on you right now. But yeah, we talk about digging into, we have the iceberg concept, actually. So with the iceberg, there's things that you can see at the tip, which is usually, I want this, no, I want this, no, I want this. And then there's things that, the bottom of the iceberg actually is the more exciting place, because it's a lot bigger, deeper. And it's like, well, what is really going on? So
it's very rarely about the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's when you actually, and I think that's the big learning for me about myself and my triggers. Often you disrespected me, and I feel like I need to shout at you. Well, actually, if I examine that and I go, well, what does respect mean to me? And why do I feel what he did was disrespectful? What was it about it? It didn't mean he disrespected me. It was just my interpretation of what respect looks like. Yeah. And I need clarity on that. And is it reasonable that I actually think of respect? So for instance, the opening the door story. For some women, they want a guy to open the door for them. And if a guy doesn't do that, they feel disrespected.
Okay.
For other women, if they open the door for them, they feel completely insulted if a guy opens the door for them. I'm equal to you. So each of us are unique in how we respond to something and what we believe to be true. So I think every time we're in conflict with another person or we're triggered by another person is to really think about why you believe something is true and allow the other person to believe what they believe is true and just try to find, a common ground and realize it's very rarely personal.
Yeah, indeed. I'd love to go back, if I may, to something that you said at the beginning, which was so beautiful, which is about, every piece of who you are or every piece of what makes you up is important for the wholeness of who you are. I know I've paraphrased that.
You paraphrased well.
Thank you. So, I'd like to explore this a little more. And what if the pieces of who you are don't necessarily make sense? I mean, I'm happy to use myself as an example, although I'm really cool with things.
Choose yourself, whatever. Yeah.
But, I think to some people, my life doesn't make sense at all. I'm a barrister. I founded Inspired. I sing and write music. And I'm a qualified body pump instructor, plus a lot of other things. So, I mean, those pieces to some appear completely disparate. So how does that work?
Question. You mean, is it okay to be all of those things?
The question is really, what if there's a piece of what you're doing that doesn't really make sense with the rest of what you do or who you are or portray to the world?
My version of that is I don't think anybody else's ideas are relevant to you. I think what matters is does it make sense to you? It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. And some of us, I'm a great believer that the world has a tapestry that we are all creating. We're creating this beautiful tapestry. And when we come here on a if you want to call it, let's just take a slightly more spiritual view, but you can use any analogy you want, that we come here with a commitment to at least contribute one thread to that tapestry. Yeah. Some of us want to contribute 5 or 10 threads to that tapestry, and you're allowed. You have permission to just work on one or to work on 25. And I think that, in each of those situations, what I find with you, for instance, and this is obviously a very superficial interpretation, but all of them are about confidence, expression, creativity, engagement. There's actually, and it's also a deeply caring. So you might, when you do law, you do it in a very caring way. You really care about your clients. So in all of those situations, there's a lot of passion and engagement that goes on. And so in actual fact, I see the similarities. I see how they all fit. So what if you choose to express them in a lot of different ways? You're the kind of person who needs more than one thread in order for you to feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to somebody.
At least professionally.
Yeah, and well, exactly. But I mean, I think that also a lot of us don't. We think we should only pick one thing. There's a lot of people who turn around and go, well, how can you be fully committed to something, and how can you make a success of something if you're not fully committed just to that one thing? And I, for a long time, felt so like squeezed because I had to choose one thing. Things at once. Do you know what I mean? That's the only way that I stay motivated and engaged, because I want to do a bit of this, and then I'm doing a bit of this, and then I come back to this, and I do a bit more of this. And each of the different things that I do feed each other. Yeah. So when I limit myself to just one thing, my creativity is stifled. Whereas when I'm painting, as I've begun to paint again since I turned 50, I learned things painting about myself and about how to problem solve that I can then apply to business. Because one of the things that I do is I help people create what I call a business with soul, or a business that is a full expression of their purpose, that they get fulfillment, a business that they get fulfillment from. Because I'm really passionate about business. I think business is a fantastic vehicle to express your purpose and to give and receive. You're very much about one of your lessons that came out in your fingerprints is about balancing give and receive. And
I can't believe you remember that.
some people who stick in my mind. What can I say? But, you know, being in the
I'm
school of
unforgettable.
services, being in the school of service is all about empowerment and about finding, you know, your personal empowerment in balance with empowering other people, and finding a way to balance that. And I think that, you know, for some of us, we need to have threads in different things in order to create balance in our life. If we are one-track minded, as some people are, and by the way, you're allowed to be one-track minded if that's what you love.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I know some people who are seriously one-track minded, and I think to myself, how can they stay so engaged and so passionate? And this is where the self-judgment happens, is we look at other people and we go, that person always is so, they never get distracted. They always are so fully engaged. And I'm not. And so therefore there's something wrong with me. Or no, you're just not meant to do it that way. You're meant to do it like this. You know, you're meant to do the threads. You're meant to be mixing your threads up and doing things, because actually your road is wider and it has more threads on it, and it's paved in a more interesting way. It's not one straight line. It does this, and it's what you bring, because nothing is straight line.
No, absolutely not. Now, you mentioned briefly school of service, and I think a lot of people are not going to be familiar with the full schools. So can you tell us a little bit about what they are and how you can find out what yours is?
Okay, well, it's in your fingerprint. And we use the word school because it's an American system, and they refer to university as school. And so it's almost like it's your university of life. And to use an example, Shay, I know that you are in the school of service from your fingerprint. And so the way to find out what school you're in is through your fingerprint, and having somebody analyze them for you. You can analyze them to a certain extent yourself, and they're definitely videos that I've done on my Facebook page, hands-on-business, that you can find, where I actually talk to you about how you can figure out what's in your own fingerprint.
Cool.
Otherwise, feel free to, you know, book a call with me on my website, which is hands-on-business.com. And we can chat about it. I can help you out. So in the school of service, for instance, you have two extremes. Like when we're in our fingerprints, what it shows us is the two sides of a coin we're dealing with. We're wanting to learn all about this coin that we have in our hands. Now, school of service is just, the schools is just one thing you can find from your fingerprints, but it does tell you your perspective. It tells you the water you swim in. It tells you the university that you're at, the main themes. So in the school of service might be, on one, it's all about service. And on one level, it's about being, right? But on the first level, it's about doing. And so people in the school of service, it's all about helping everybody else, right? It's like I'm either helping myself or I'm helping them. It's all about me or it's all about them. So those are the two sides. One side of the coin is me, the other side is them. And I'm either a martyr and a doormat, or I'm very self-centered and just thinking about myself, right? But actually, it's about finding the balance between the two. And there is no central balance, because sometimes it's more appropriate to be a little more self-centered. Sometimes it's appropriate to be a little bit more caring about other people and considerate of other people. It's about, but then you take it to the next. So that's on a, you know, a mental, everyday level. But if you're taking it to a slightly more spiritual level, then it becomes about being and how you're showing up, and recognizing the fact that people in the school of service just have this energy around them that they impact everybody around them. So if they're feeling good, everybody feels good. If they're feeling bad, everybody feels bad. They just somehow impact everybody around them. And so taking care of their own energy becomes a service to other people.
Nice.
They need to make sure that they are happy so that the people around them are happy. And which sometimes feels contrary to what they feel naturally drawn to do. They feel naturally drawn to always help other people, to take care of people, to serve other people. And also on a spiritual level is to understand that they're very drawn to living their purpose. I need to know what my purpose is. They're also quite duty and obligation driven. I must do what's required of me, what's expected of me. And they tend to follow whoever the authority figure in their life, whether that's a father or a headmaster or God. You know, they will align to whoever they believe their authority figure is. And they have they often tend to be more spiritually inclined, even if they might not use the word spiritual. But they have a higher way of looking at things, a sort of a more of a comprehensive impression of what things might be. They also like things done to a very high standard. and as a result tend to do things themselves because they often do it better than other people can. And they're here to learn that they're more about being teachers and helping people to teaching people to do things at the level that they're at, helping people to be more empowered. That is a very simplistic look at the School of Service. As you know, I can speak for a couple of hours on one school.
Yeah. As in a bite-sized chunk, what are the other ones?
And they're very quickly, and I did a bit more on School of Service because it relates to you. But the others are School of Peace, which is very much all about the body. And it's all about the extremes of crisis, anxiety, and drama, and hiding out and sitting, with my finding, watching Downton Abbey from series 1 to series 10 while I switch everything else off and I just disengage from the world. So it's disengagement versus over-engagement. Then School of Wisdom is very much about decision making, lots of procrastination versus taking inappropriate risks, as in making a decision without thinking it through versus I haven't got enough information and procrastinate, and then I don't make any decision, and then I end up making it the wrong decision, and then I've proved that I'm rubbish at decision making, so that I'm going to procrastinate over and over again until I make another rash decision. And it's this weird thing around action and decision making. And then the other one is the School of Love, which is about emotions, and it's about buried emotions versus overexpression, like rage or crying inappropriately or punching inappropriately, and everything in between. And it's really about learning to engage with your caring heart and giving you permission to be a caring soul in this world and engage. But those of us who have that as a challenge for us often struggle with vulnerability and as a result connection. So it's not, by the way, we might all have all 4 schools in us.
Oh, really?
We have but no, we can all experience it to some degree, but we will have a focus, and what your fingerprints will tell you is where the focus is, and where we can put energy to get results.
I see. So the school, I love that analogy actually. It's like a swimming pool that you swim in, or the university that you've chosen to go to. So what have you chosen to go to? If you want to find out, obviously you can give Helen a call or look at her lovely videos. We are nearly at time, but other than the schools, what else can you figure out from the fingerprints?
From the fingerprints? Well, I mean, I use fingerprint analysis to help people understand who they are personally and who they're designed to be. But I also use it to help you figure out what might be the ideal business for you and how your business needs to be structured in order for you to do it naturally. Business that feels natural as opposed to business that feels like pushing up a mountain up a hill. You can find out things like your life purpose or or your natural gifts that you are here to share with the world, and you need to share with the world in order to feel fulfilled. You can discover what on a subconscious level drives you, what values fundamentally drive you and you're programmed to do. You can discover where you're blind, where the gift everybody else sees in you that you have no idea about and you keep resisting, and people keep putting you into situations where you're supposed to use this gift and you want to run. It's where you make your mistakes. It's where your fears and your obligations are. You can discover things like your natural brand for your business. You can,
nice.
I mean, there's just such a list that I could go on for ages, but it just gives you a bit of thing. I think that, if you would like to know more and you're interested in more, definitely go to my website, which is hands-on-business.com. And just there's some introductory videos and a few bits and bobs there. And if you're interested, I do offer a few free calls. Have a call with me, have a chat with me, or jump on my email list and get invited to the next webinar I do with a bit more detail.
Lovely. I've got a final question for you, maybe a couple of final questions for you. Can your fingerprints change?
No, they are. What excites me about fingerprints, and this is the scientist and the skeptic in me that kind of gets excited about this stuff, is identical twins have the same DNA. But the only thing that is different about them is their fingerprints. Because your fingerprints form 5 months before you're even born. Before somebody's mean to you, before you think you might be reserved because of what happened to you as a child. No, it's all designed. It's in your fingerprints before anything actually ever happened to you in the first place. And I love the power of that. And I believe your fingerprints develop at the same time as your brain does, and so are an indication of how your brain has developed to think and approach world, and that what I call the highways in your brain that are pre-laid down. So they are the neural pathways, the ways of thinking that are designed before you're even born, and the way that you choose to look at the world and see the world, and why you and your sister have possibly different, complete, I'm not saying, I know you don't have a sister, but have completely different perspectives on exactly the same experience when you were growing up. And so your fingerprints can burn off and they will grow back identical.
Amazing.
The other thing which absolutely floors me.
That's
so I believe that they are a map to who you are designed to be.
Yeah. And then just finally, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
I would just invite people to let go. To let go of what you should be doing, and just connect with your heart about what you love. Because I think if you connect back with your heart and what you truly love, it will only lead you to the right and the good place.
It's beautiful. Helen, thank you so much. It's been, as always, such a joy to spend time with you. It's probably been way too long since we've met up. But I hope that the UK government will make that possible very soon.
That'd be brilliant. It'd be so lovely to see you again.
Absolutely. Sending lots of love.
And to you too.